Welcome. Today, we're not just going to review regulations. No, we're actually going to build a world-class compliant laboratory right from the ground up, using the foundational principles of good clinical laboratory practice as our guide. All right, to make this real, let's dive in by following the journey of a new facility. We'll call them Apex Clinical Labs. So their big goal is to analyze samples for a really important clinical trial. And their challenge? Well, they've got to achieve absolutely flawless GCLP compliance right from the very beginning. So here's how we're going to track the Apex Labs story. We'll start with the physical foundation, the facilities themselves. Then we'll look at the command structure, the organization. After that, we'll bring in the human element, the personnel. And finally, we'll put it all together to see the complete blueprint for compliance. Okay, first things first. For Apex, the very first step is designing the physical laboratory. And listen, this isn't just about making sure you have enough benches and equipment. The design of the facility itself is absolutely fundamental to the validity of every single piece of work that's going to happen inside those walls. To really nail sample integrity, Apex has to design their whole space around the sample's journey. Think about it. From the second a sample arrives, it has to be securely received, meticulously tracked, and stored under very specific controlled conditions. And this is crucial. The analysis activities have to be separated to prevent any chance of cross-contamination. Now, that could mean physical walls in different rooms, or you could do it just as effectively by separating activities in time. You just make sure different kinds of work aren't happening in the same space at the same time. Now, what's so interesting here is how all these requirements work together to basically create a protective bubble around the data. It's a whole system, right? The right size means no overcrowding. Separation stops mix-ups. Security prevents tampering. And controlled environments, well, they make sure your results are reliable and not getting messed up by things like heat or humidity. It's all about protecting the integrity of the work. All right, so with the physical lab designed, Apex now has to set up its command structure. In GCLP, having a clear, documented organizational chart is totally non-negotiable. It really is all about creating ultimate accountability. And this table just illustrates it perfectly. Before a single sample gets analyzed, every key role has to be spelled out and put on paper. Management, their job is to provide the resources. The analytical project manager, they own the science. Quality assurance, they make sure everything is compliant. See? Everyone has their own lane, and everybody knows exactly who is responsible for what. That way things just don't fall through the cracks. Let's just zoom in on this one role for a second, the analytical project manager. This person is literally the linchpin for the scientific work of a specific trial. They are the single named person who is accountable, making sure everything that happens in the lab lines up perfectly with the clinical protocol. I mean, that is a role with some serious responsibility. So, the bottom line here is that it all comes back to documentation. It is management's core duty to make sure every single person, from a senior scientist all the way to a lab tech, has a signed, current job description. And this isn't just some HR paperwork. In the world of GCLP, this is the very backbone of a compliant and accountable organization. Okay, so Apex has its facility. It has its organizational chart locked in. But you know what? Those are just blueprints and boxes on a chart. They mean nothing without the right people. And in GCLP, right means verifiably competent with all the documented education, training, and experience to prove it. This quote right here from the GCLP standards, this is the North Star for everything that has to do with personnel. It's not enough to just be smart or even to be good at your job. You have to have the documented education, the specific experience, and the ongoing training to back it all up. So at Apex, this means every single staff member needs two different kinds of training. First up, you've got GCP training. That's the why. It's about understanding the regulations, the ethics, patient safety, all the foundational principles of clinical trial work. And it's not a one-and-done thing either. It needs a refresher at least every 2 years. Then you have the technical training. That's the how, which proves they're actually competent in the specific, hands-on methods they'll be using for that trial. And here's the golden rule of GCLP. If it isn't documented, it didn't happen. Period. So a complete training file must be kept for every single person. We're talking their corporate-style CV, which is all about qualifications and experience, not self-promotion, their signed job description, all their training certificates, and records that prove their technical skills. Literally every piece of training, no matter how small, has to be documented. All right, so we followed Apex Labs as they've built their foundation piece by piece. The physical space, the organizational structure, and the competent team.
So now it's time to kind of step back and see how this all fits together into the complete blueprint for GCLP compliance.
When you really boil it all down, this entire system that we've been building, it rests on three interconnected pillars, and they are all equally important. Make no mistake, if one of these pillars is weak, the entire structure is at risk of crumbling. And here they are. Number one, solid facilities, designed to protect that sample at every single step. Number two, a clear organization, where every person's role is clearly defined, which creates that chain of accountability. And number three, competent personnel, who are verifiably trained to do their jobs correctly. These three pillars, facilities, organization, and personnel, they are the absolute, unshakable foundation of quality and integrity in any clinical lab.
You know, the journey of Apex Labs really gives us a clear, practical model for how to achieve compliance. It's not just about ticking boxes and following rules. It's about building a robust system. And that brings us to the final, really essential question. When you look at your own environment, is it built on that same solid foundation?